Hi, everybody. I just wanted to talk about the full moon that is coming up April 29th. It's going to be a full moon in Scorpio. And so the sun will be in Taurus, the moon will be in Scorpio. And I wanted to just pull forth a theme from that, right? Moons, everything in astrology is going to affect people differently based on their own natal charts. But there are themes that come up with different astrological events, so like this full moon. And so I've taken a lot of time to meditate on a theme, and I think I've got a good one that can help us out in working on our own personal transformation, and in particular, working with the energies that we planted in this last new moon, which at the recording of this video was yesterday. The new moon was in Aries, so it was a great time to align ourselves, align our passions with our actions, right? Because Aries is all about energy, passion, and action. So as we planted the seeds to really invoke our passions into our lives this year, this full moon is going to present an opportunity to really see how we create transformation and how we create an inner alchemy to help us do that, right? To fulfill that intention, that seed that we planted. And that's really what we get to do when we work with the moon cycles. New moons are great for planting. Full moons are sort of like birthing a part of what we planted, right? And that space between, that waxing space, is great for cultivating. And then after the full moon, then we have a space for clearing. Very much like if you've ever done gardening, you plant the seed, it grows, you nurture and nourish it, you harvest it. It gives forth fruit, which is kind of like that birthing full moon. And then you're going to clear space again. You're going to till the soil. You're going to pull out any weeds. You're going to get rid of any rocks that randomly showed up, or shells that the crows like planted or brought and littered the ground with. You're going to clear space. And so you have this continuous cycle of seeding, cultivating, birthing, and then clearing. And so we're in the cultivating phase, right? And we're working our way to the full moon in Scorpio. And so the theme that really came up for me with this is that transformative aspect of Scorpio, right? Scorpio rules over the eighth house, which is the house of like sex, death, rebirth, transformation, and alchemy. And so it was that alchemy component that really showed up in relation to our inner lives and what happens inside of us. And to help demonstrate this and to really help us get a visual for this, I'm going to pull up the chart for the exact time of the full moon. So this is the chart for April 29th, and I think the full moon happens, let me double check. Yeah, it happens Pacific Standard Time at 5:58 p.m. So at that exact time, at the time that the moon is perfectly opposed to the sun, you have the sun in Taurus, you have the moon in Scorpio, and then you have a lot of other interplay with the planets, right? So let's start off though with the sun in Scorpio. And really what we're going to be going to is we're going to be working on how do we work with the unconscious aspect of ourselves and our body to create this alchemical process and formula to bring our passions into very realized and manifested actions and experiences in the world, right? And so we're going to start off, if you're thinking about alchemy, right, and you're thinking about this process of alchemy, and that aspect of the ancients of doing this transmutation process, you always need a vessel, right? You need a vessel to hold the work. And that's very much what Taurus is, right? It's the first earth sign in the zodiac. It follows the first fire sign of Aries in the zodiac, which is really like that spark of motion. And then you have Taurus, which is this earthy vessel. It's very much related to our bodies, right? Taurus is very much in touch with our bodies because it's very much in touch with the earthy and physical realm. And you see this in nature. Astrology arose, this aspect of astrology, Western astrology, arose in the Northern Hemisphere. And so it's very related to the Northern Hemisphere's nature cycles, right? So you see this in spring where Aries starts the process, things start to bud, things start to sprout, And then Taurus season is really the time and season when things start to open up, right? You start to see more blooms, which then get germinated in that Gemini season where everything's cross pollinating. But you have that opening, that vessel opening with Taurus. Venus also rules Taurus, and this gets sexual in the fact that Venus rules that feminine aspect, right? And that opening womb space, right? That receives the later pollination and fertilization to bring something forward. Now, on the other side of the chart, and when the full moon occurs, the other side of the world is the moon right now in Scorpio, which rules over the transformation phase. And with every transformation and rebirth, there's always a death of the old, right? And so the first impression that came up for me when I was looking at this, it's weird because it came up as an image, was essentially like imagining the body. So it was like Taurus, body, vessel. Okay, we got this. And then there was just this scorpion on the inside of the body. Kind of if you have seen like muscle images of what the body would look like just with muscles. It was almost on the inside of those muscles, the scorpion just started skittering around. And I'm like, okay. Scorpio is often related to underworld journeys, often related to that unconscious aspect of the self. And another image that came up is if you think of, because Scorpio is a water element, which tends to rule over our emotions or is seen to rule over our emotions. If you think about all these emotions and these unconscious things that we normally think of with cycles and tides and moving, and you just freeze them for a moment, you would get a topography, right? You would get you would hopefully not get a slamming screen door from the windstorm. Sorry, I had to go take care of that. So you would get a topography. You would get this image of an inner world that can be explored, right? Can be physically explored, physically traversed, even excavated, right? Like you can dig into it. You can see layers of it. And so what that really brought forth for me is the aspect of the fact that when we often talk about things like the unconscious, or we often talk about things like the subconscious or the subliminal mind, we tend to think of it oftentimes, or people tend to think of it oftentimes as this kind of ethereal thing, right? It's the dream world, it's the emotional world, it's this thing that is flowy and is sort of related to reality, but not, it's not a fixed thing, right? It doesn't feel like a physical thing. But in reality, it is a very, very, very physical thing, right? Our emotions are like the way that we feel them is because we have a body, right? They're not ethereal. They're chemicals moving through our body. They are twitches in our nervous system. They are twitches in our muscles. They are memories held by the body through muscle memory. They are memories held in the body in our neurons, right? They are a very physical reaction, a very physical aspect. And so what this Scorpio energy allows us to do, also as the moon rules over this inner realm, what the Scorpio almost solidifying of this inner realm allows us to do is see the relationship between our vessel bodies, Taurus, and our unconscious selves within, and how these essentially are one, right? We oftentimes treat them like they're polar differences, right? Like there's the practical physical realm, and then there's this emotional realm that we experience. But really, it's one, right? And so this full moon is going to give us the opportunity to really feel into that fact, feel into the fact that our emotions in this inner realm of the unconscious is a very physical bodily experience. And that's great because you have the sun in this vessel aspect of Taurus, holding space for this inner realm aspect of the moon and our ability to navigate it. And so I was like, okay, that's the message then, right? Like the unconscious is physical. We can navigate that. We can use this time to do really great, deep inner work. We can work with the unconscious at this time and really bring mindfulness to this. And then I was like, great. okay, so what are we cultivating, right? And we can cultivate an awareness of this, right? We can cultivate an awareness of our emotions and of this inner world as being an actual physical part of us, right? And as being very intimately related with our body and the way that our body navigates its environments and the way that we take care of our body. And we can cultivate an awareness of that, but it wasn't enough, right? I was like, there needs to be a theme that's more applicable, right? And that's when that aspect of like, okay, vessel, alchemy, okay, vessel, the Taurus vessel body, and then Scorpio, alchemy, transformation, change kind of popped up. And what came up in the meditation was, okay, what are we cultivating in this transformation, right? How When we look at the practices of alchemy, they were very particular. Like, what do you put in? What do you put into this solution, right? How long do you work with this solution? How do you manipulate the solution? What is going on in the room around the solution? And since it was a spiritual practice, also like, who are you calling out to? Who are you interacting with as a guide of this process? Like, who is the patron of this process? In ancient days, Mercury would often be that patron. In Christian days, there were different angels or saints that would hold over that process and different prayers that you would use in this process. And it was very much seen that everything in your life affected this work. And so I think that another further message of this can be the aspect of the fact that these bodies that we're having and the experiences that we have in these bodies all affect the alchemy of what we are creating. And since we just planted the seed in Aries and this new moon in Aries of our passions aligning into a very real interaction with the world, then the question of what are we creating with this inner alchemy really is that great work that we're working to do, right? That alignment of passion with action in the life that we are creating. And one of the beauties of this is when we talk about alchemy, oftentimes people are like, oh, okay, it's transmuting something into gold. Right. And so if we take this in a metaphysical way, then it could be you can transmute anything inside into this holy experience or this experience of wisdom and enlightenment. And that is an aspect of alchemy, but that was only really the first step, right? They weren't just looking to transmute lead into gold. Many alchemists were then looking at how to create the philosopher's stone, which allowed you to transmute lead anywhere into gold, right? It was supposed to create this aspect or this substance that allowed you to to transmute not only just like the lead that you were working on, but further lead, right? The lead that you come across into the world. And the way that this can translate is that when we are doing this inner work, when we are working on this inner transformation in our own lives, what we're looking for is to become the philosopher's stone. Like it is great that we do this transformational work within us, that we transform old pains, old wounds, trauma, and the old conditionings of the body and the way that they feel in our lives into something greater, into a greater awareness, into wisdom and understanding. But the next step past that is to become a source of transmutation and a catalyst for other people's transformation and transmutation and the transformation of the world. And so this is something I think we can really work on invoking with this full moon, is this full process. So not only are we cultivating an awareness of the fact that our emotional realm, our unconscious realm, and the patterns that we find within there are a physical thing. They're very much a part of our physical body. And we can work on those and we can transmute those through inner work, shadow work, depth work, whole bunch of different practices. But what we're going for is to do that in such a way that we allow our passions to fully flow through us and become a catalyst, transmuting factor in the world, something that helps the rest of the world transform and transmute. I think you can see this here in the alignment of the other planets, right? So the moon is going to be approaching a conjunction with Jupiter. On the 29th, it enters in the 10 degrees away from Jupiter. Not only on the 29th, but at that exact time. And then it's going to be approaching a conjunction with Jupiter, who's retrograde in Scorpio. Once again, really tapping into that inner realm, that diving deep within the unconscious and within the underworld to learn new lessons. And both Jupiter and the moon are going to be related over here to Neptune and Pisces, right? They're both going to be trine Neptune and Pisces. And so they connect us to that spiritual revelationary experience, right? Jupiter is also connected here to Pluto and Mars in Capricorn, and the moon is connected to Saturn in Capricorn, and both Pluto and Saturn are retrograde. So what really came out of this for me when I was thinking about, okay, what does this mean? And what does this mean to me personally? Is the fact that when we're doing this inner work, right? When we're creating space and change and we're creating transformation within us so that we can truly invoke this philosopher's stone, right? We can truly be a catalyst for change in the world around. We're going to have to overcome a lot of conditioning, right? And that's what I see in all these retrogrades. You have Saturn, which is Lord of Karma, Lord of Structures, Lord of structures, history, tradition, and he's going backwards. He's moving backwards. He's well aligned with the moon, but the energy here is taking a step back, right? And also introverting. That's typically what comes up with retrogrades. The introverts, and it doesn't fully apply itself in its normal way. And then you also have, and he's in Capricorn, which is a sign that he rules, which is also very much about structures and authority systems and the ancestors and tradition. And you have Pluto, which is this planet of transformation, right? Pluto in the modern astrology naturally rules over Scorpio. And he is taking a step back, right? He's taking a step back in Capricorn in the space of tradition. And so what I see here really is the fact that we will have to challenge our conditionings. We will have to challenge our conditionings in order to actually go through with the full process of transformation. And you see that in alchemy, right? They are constantly working on alchemy to really break the mold of matter, right? To really break the structures and the form of the way that matter is supposed to act, to dissolve old things that are no longer needed, and to purify the substance that they're working on to create the magnum opus, the great work and the philosopher's stone. And so when we look at this in our own personal lives, this can be a time to really challenge those things that still hold us back, right? Those expectations of the world that still hold us back from our previous history and the conditioning of our childhood and the conditioning of our culture and the conditioning of our family and our parents, and see what holds back the work. We don't have to ditch it all, right? There's typically some really great stuff in pretty much anything, right? Like there will be good points that we can use as the so kind of if you're refining gold, right, you burn away the dross and it leaves the gold. So we want to burn away the dross, but there's still going to be some gold specks in there, right, that we can use in our transformation. And I think what I see this here with this Neptune is that when we align this with that spiritual revelation and that spiritual peace that comes from this cosmic love in Pisces, and Neptune is at home in Pisces, it touches on the moon and it touches on Jupiter and it touches on Pluto and Mars, and it really just creates space and acceptance for the process, right? And so that's what came up for me when I was thinking about how do I apply this personally. Is my first thought was, because I've been doing, I always do a lot of inner work in journaling and stuff, but I've been doing some inner work in journaling. What's come up recently is, okay, I need to get over some of my regrets and guilt from stuff I've done years and years and years and years ago, right? And just release it, because the more, even though I don't like, I'm not obsessing over it, but there is definitely this space of guilt within me. And the more time I spend with that, the less energy I have to be a catalyst for my own transformation and for the transformation of people around me and the transformation of the world, right? So I want to release this. But this is we're approaching the full moon. This is a waxing phase of the moon. We're not talking about releasing things. We're talking about cultivating things. So I had to challenge myself, like, okay, what is the opposite end of this, right? We're not like, yes, I know I love getting rid of things and overcoming challenges and cutting things away. But what am I actually cultivating? What am I developing? And what I saw when I was able to like look at the mirror of this, right? Or the other side of the guilt is acceptance, right? And I really feel like that plays in a lot here with this Pisces aspect, which typically relates to cosmic love and oneness, is the acceptance of the process, right? In alchemy, you don't just create the philosopher's stone, right? It's a huge drawn out process, and there's different levels that happen, right? You start with the darker substance, and you have to break that down, and it breaks down into so you start off with a negredo, and it breaks down albedo. Okay, I'm having problems pronouncing these things. I'm going to have patience with the process of the fact that I grew up with massive speech impediment, and sometimes words just don't work well for me. So you start off with the negredo, and that's like the darker aspect of things. You move into the albedo, or the whitening aspect of things. Sometimes there is a yellow citrinitas. I'm probably mispronouncing these things. And then you have the rubedo, right? And this rending. And these are all different aspects of these are all different aspects of the process. And I love it when you use this with dream work, because it really shows how things in the unconscious go through this process too. But there's always this process of transformation and evolution, and then also regression, right? Sometimes things will regress, and that's okay, because it needed a new mixing of components. It needed a new mixing of ingredients, right, to get the proper alchemical brew. And so just having patience with that process, right, is something that I know I'm going to work on cultivating, is recognizing like, hey, like, or increasing my mindfulness, especially with myself. I can do it a lot easier with other people, and being like, oh, okay, no, change takes time, right? It's a physical thing. When you're trying to change your mindset, for instance, like, your mindset is based on your neurological composition. It takes time, right? We're relating back again to that Scorpio Taurus connection, that this inner realm is a physical space. It's not going to just change overnight. It takes time to change and transform it, right? And to have patience for that, and have patience with myself for the things that I want to change. And then to have faith in the process, faith in that Neptune and Pisces, that there is this cosmic spiritual process happening, right? And that it will work itself out. And then also to have determination, right? Scorpio is a very determined sign, and so is Taurus. They're both fixed signs. When they do something, they get it done, right? And so to have that determination on this work. So those are the three things that I will be cultivating: is the patience with self in the process, the faith in the process that it is spiritually aligned, and the determination to carry it through. And then this mindfulness of, hey, the things that I interact with in the world, the things that I consume, the things that I expose not only my body to, but my inner life to, all have an effect on this work of alchemy that I am creating. And what I am creating is my own magnum opus, right? That part of me that is aligned with my passions and my actions that can act as a catalyst for transformation, not only in my own life, but the life of the people who I interact with and the world around me. So, this can be a way of working with the full moon. I invite you to tap in to that energy that we're still in with Aries from that new moon yesterday. Figure out how, or tap in, feel out how you can align your passions with your actions. What is this work that you're doing? You don't have to know what your magnum opus is, but discover the direction, right? My declaration for the new moon was that I am putting my passions into actions through helping other people transform, through the work that I do with other people. And also, one of my passions that came up was loving people's stories and gathering people's stories and sharing people's stories, right? So that's going to be a project that I'm working on. So find your direction of your magnum opus, though it will shift, it will change, but there will be a core to it, right? A core that it's identified with your passions. Be mindful of the way that you affect this great work within you, by what you expose it to, what you expose your inner life to, and what you expose your body and yourself to. And then be mindful of the fact that this is a process and it takes time and it shifts and it changes. And really sit with this, right? Sit with this and see what other messages come up for you, right? It might have like the theme might be similar, but maybe you have completely different things that come up to you as things that you want to cultivate. Share that with us, right? Share your perspective, share your point of view, on how to be relating with these energies and what came up for you when you heard this, right? And blessings on the work that you do. Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.